Greetings. Welcome to our 25th episode of the FGI podcast series. My name is Tim Stark, and I'm a professor of civil engineering at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. On today's episode, we are going to focus on our February 4th, 2021 webinar titled Geomembrane Attachment and Penetration Design and Installation. I'd like to quickly reintroduce our speakers for today. First is Duff Simbeck, and he is Vice President of Simbeck and Associates. He has been involved in the field installation of geosynthetics and project management for 22 years with projects ranging from North Carolina to California. We received at least 45 questions during and after the webinar, so we were breaking them up into 3 podcasts so you can quickly find your question and a response to it. Thank you very much for your interest in the webinar and submitting so many questions. The first webinar podcast was recorded by Pat Elliott, and he addressed embedment strips and mechanical attachment questions. Today, in this podcast, Duff Simbeck will address the anchor trench related questions. So Duff, thanks so much for joining us again.
Glad to be here, Dr. Stark. Thank you.
Okay, first question. What is a good lift thickness and compaction effort for anchor trenches?
In the webinar, we showed a diagram, a design drawing that had an anchor trench 5 feet down or more and 2 feet across. I put that in to emphasize that we feel that compaction and lifts is excessive and even risky to the liner system. By compacting in lifts, whether it's 2, 3, or 4, sometimes they say every 6 inches, you risk pulling the liner upslope during that compaction process. That can lead to bridging. It can pull away or put stress on pipe boots and structures downslope. So we, as a rule, recommend no more than wheel rolling after the backfill of anchor trenches.
Great, Duff. Thank you. Second question. I've read that some waste landfills were using magnetic liner anchor system. Have you ever worked with this kind of anchor system? What is your opinion about it?
No, unfortunately, I have not. I'd have to research that before offering an opinion.
Okay, thank you. Next question on anchor trenches is, on slide 30, you showed a cobbly subgrade. What would you suggest be done in that case, that is, in the anchor trench, if the anchor trench cannot be cut cleanly? In other words, remove and replace those rocky materials with clay or similar materials.
Planning ahead with the contractor and the engineer in the conversation are essential because, of course, they build the slope, they build and cut the anchor trench. So, if they know they've got cobble, then, we get on site and we're faced with that. And often we see a trench that's got that irregular cut or it's 50% larger than we were told up front. So I've never witnessed a job where they could completely redo everything. But on occasion, we have asked that they fill in the trench and recut it with care and make that line as even as they can and as close to the design drawing as possible.
Okay, great. Duff, last question. It's sort of related to the first one. What is the recommended lift thickness and compaction criteria, sort of relative compaction, for anchor trenches?
95% of the trenches that we encounter in the field are simple square bucket cuts. The standard that has always worked is 1 to 2 foot setback from your crest of slope, then a vertical cut of 18 to 30 inches down, and another foot across or 2 feet across to the back edge of the trench. The only situation where I believe it's sensible for compacted lifts in that trench is if you're expecting heavy equipment to drive over that trench for some reason in the future. Otherwise, there's no point in compaction. We've even seen designs where they filled it in with concrete, and unless you're going to anchor some mooring posts or there's some other reason, we feel that that is superfluous. The critical part is if you are going to do compaction of that anchor trench material in lifts, well, protect that edge of the liner so there's no damage, unnecessary damage. And that's our recommendation, because even when you've loaded the slope and it's a covered liner system, we don't feel it's necessary to compact. And if you're going to compact, then make it no more than 2 lifts, paying close attention to protecting the liner.
Great, Duff. Well, thanks so much for joining us again. If you have additional questions on anchor trenches, please feel free to email them to Duff Simbeck. His contact information is on the last slide of the webinar. And if you can't find that, email it to me at fabricatedgeomembrane@gmail.com, and I will forward it to Duff Simbeck, or visit our FGI website at fabricatedgeomembrane.com. So Duff, thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure, Dr. Stark. Thank you.
Thank you.